feel free. So, great. I'll wait a bit so that people don't. Today I have enough time. Tomorrow will be much faster. Okay. Okay. Maybe someone will join us, but let's start. And if we are just this small group, then you have more space for questions, of course. So welcome. I'm glad to see you here, and glad you are going to learn from someone else's mistakes. So if you don't know me, I'm HOnza Koudelka from 24U. This is a little bit of me. If you don't want to learn more, there is a link which you can visit in the bottom. I don't want to waste your time talking about myself, but let me talk a little bit about our company. 24U started in 2000 when I and Beja founded it as a company dealing with software development and doing custom solutions for customers. And since then, over the 23 years, we grew to have customers in 76 countries around the world and more than 100 people. So it's been a very interesting journey. And what we do now is we do maintenance and ongoing development for our customers. We also specialize in software and hardware integrations. And you may know also performance testing and optimizations. So I don't know how many of you know that this is a Swedish proverb. I didn't know that. I knew it from my childhood, that shared joy is double joy and shared sorrow is a half a sorrow. But just earlier this year, I learned it's actually from Sweden. I wasn't aware of it. But it works really great. So I am trying to use it today and share some of our sorrows and some of our joys to take use of this proverb. And let me start with the difficult thing, and those are greatest mistakes. How many of you like to make mistakes? Raise your hands. Okay, it's smart to do so, smart to like it, because mistakes let you learn, unless the mistakes cost you life, of course. So, but it's always easier or less troublesome to learn from someone else's mistakes, even though your own mistake will be more rememberable, of course. So let me talk about a few ones, and this is an old one, but I always like to talk about it because it's still valid. In FileMaker, you know that you can store a lot of text in a field, and you can, I think since FileMaker 16, you can convert container to base64 or a hexadecimal representation, and vice versa. In some situations, like integrating with web services, it's very useful to do it. And if you have a large container, you get even larger amount of text data if you convert it to base 64. So we used it in one of our client solutions, and we used this to serve container data over a web interface or a web API to a different service. The problem in that solution, the mistake that I personally made, was when I created a calculation field. And you may know that in one of those knowledge base articles on Claris website, as a performance recommendation, it says avoid using unstored calculations. I always say it's a wrong advice. The right advice is use unstored calculations when appropriate and use stored ones when appropriate. In this case, I forgot to make this calculation unstored. Well, do you know what FileMaker does when you load a record from a server or when you commit a record? Here's what I made as exact measurements with 11 megabyte picture. So when the FileMaker creates a record, it's not doing anything difficult, but when you add a photo and you have that stored calculation there, what happens is that FileMaker client first sends the photo over HTTP to the server. Then it evaluates the calculation and sends the data, including the photo, back to the client from the server. It also sends the photo itself as a container back to the FileMaker. Now, when you modify the record, because it's a text-based calculation, it's not a container. When you modify or load records, it only deals with containers when it needs to, but all other fields are sent over to the client and back to the server whenever you make a change. So when you add a description, simple text field, it also sends back the calculation result, which is 11 megabytes here. And when you change the description, it again sends those 11 megabytes to the FileMaker server. And then when another user connects to the database and changes the same record, your FileMaker Pro client, if you have that record open, will download that picture, that calculation result from the server again, every time someone makes a change. So this is what's happening. When you just turn the calculation to unstored, so that it's only calculated when it's needed, and FileMaker no longer needs to transfer the data, you will see on the right side of the table what's actually being transferred. And if you imagine you have, and this was the case in our situation, several thousand records with, let's say, PDF attachments in container fields, and you do this mistake and make a calculation that's stored with the base64 representation of the attachment. Now, the other thing is, what happens when you go to definition and change the storage options for the field to unstored? And I guess immediately you commit that change of the database structure, on the server it will start deleting all those stored calculation results from those thousands of records. And if you have a database that's hosted with 50 users connected, those 50 users will start calling, because this is going to take hours to complete. And within those hours, none of the users will be able to use the database. So my takeaways from this mistake is never store text files or store files in text fields, because text fields will be traveling back and forth between the client and the server. And just an advice. If you want to store base64 representation of a container, you can still store it as a container data. So whenever you have a lot of text, unless you need to edit it directly in the field or you want to search for something in that text, you can store that as a container field. And then it will not have to travel back and forth whenever FileMaker works with that record. And in general, always be aware of the record size. So, because FileMaker always works with the record as a whole, except for unstored calculations and container fields. So whatever fields you have there, even if you change just a single field, if you have a table, and I have seen tables with 600 fields in them, in customer solutions. So if you have 600 fields in a table, and you change one field, it will have to send all those 600 fields back to the FileMaker server. So be aware of what amount of data is traveling between the client and the server when working with your records. And the solution to this, for instance, if you are working with list views are a great example where it really matters because you're not dealing with a single record. You're dealing with all the records visible on the screen, plus 25 records ahead and 25 records down. So if you only have to display 5 fields to the user, it doesn't matter that you have 600 fields in the record for the detail view. Use separate table with one-to-one relationship and store those 5 fields that you need for the list view in one table and all the remaining fields in another table. Then you can use all those other fields in the detailed layout, but only the table with as few fields as possible for the list view. And then the list view will be extremely fast, even over a local, even over in internet and a cloud-based server. The next mistake, about a year ago, we got a new client, and this client used FileMaker Cloud. We were supposed to take care of their database, and at one point we were supposed to deliver an update. So we downloaded a copy of the database, worked on it in our development server, prepared the update, and once we were ready to deploy it, we scheduled with the client when would be the best time to deploy the changes. And we arranged Friday morning before their start of the work. So in the morning they were starting 9 o'clock in UK time. We were 1 hour ahead, so that was 10 in the morning for us. So we started working on it 3 hours ahead of that, thinking that we have enough extra time if in the case we have any issues. So what happened is we actually reserved 2 hours for the whole job, and you can see the plan was this: after testing how long it takes to download the database from the FileMaker Cloud, how long to upload it. Now, the issue that we had is we prepared all that, closed the database on the FileMaker Cloud, because right now that's the only way how you can replace it with a new one, and also how to download it. You cannot download the backup. So we closed the database, downloaded it, did the data migration with the data migration tool, which was pretty fast. It took just like, I think 2 minutes or 3 minutes. And then uploaded the database back to UK to the FileMaker Cloud data center. From Prague to the London-based data center, it was taking 20 minutes to upload. And then it gave us the message that the database is opening and that in a moment it will be available. Okay, it doesn't tell you what moment. So we had to wait. We waited 5 minutes. It was still opening. When we looked at the console, it was still opening. After 46 minutes, it was already getting close to the start of the customer's working hours, so we got quite nervous. And in the end, this database, we couldn't do anything because it was opening. So we couldn't close it. We couldn't interrupt the process anyway. There was nothing we could do. And we saw that the CPU usage of the instance was close to 100%. So in the FileMaker Cloud admin interface, the management interface, there was the only thing that we could do, and that's restart the instance. So we clicked that button, thinking that this would solve the problem, and we could at least start over and find out what's wrong. Okay, so after we clicked that button, the instance went offline, but it didn't go online again. So we had to contact Claris support for it's the first time I contacted Claris support by phone in my life. And the first experience was, okay, we will look at it, but try to upload the database again. Actually, I was contacting the support before trying to restart the instance, just to get some help. So the first advice was to upload the database again with a different name, which didn't help. It just made it worse because there were two gigabyte databases instead of one on a 10 gigabyte storage. Then after about 1 hour, they said, well, we think that restarting the instance will fix it. It didn't, because I already tried that. And I said, okay, so I'm a FileMaker Claris Platinum partner. I already did all what I can imagine doing to help the situation. And so I want someone technically look at it because it's something more serious than just restarting the instance. In the end, it took, I will keep the story short, it took 11 hours for Claris FileMaker Cloud support to take it back up. It turned out that trying to restart the instance while it was opening the database corrupted the instance forever, so they had to reset the instance completely. Also, the reason why the database was not opening is that because the process on the FileMaker Cloud is two-phase process. One is the upload, then they are copying the database from one folder to another folder and verifying its consistency. And in that process, they had a bug which caused it to never finish in this case. So they took 11 hours to fix it, which of course cost our client one whole day where they could not use the database. Because once I tried to restart the instance, I had no way to recover from backup anymore. So there was no way back. I only had to wait for the FileMaker Cloud support. So when I evaluated this, the mistake was that even though we had like 2 hours, which included 1 hour of spare time, that wasn't enough. At least not enough for FileMaker Cloud support. The other thing is, when I still had a chance to recover from backup, when initially the database was opening for way too long, for 45 minutes, I actually called the client and asked them, okay, we have this situation. It means that it will probably take longer to finish the deployment. Do you want to wait a little or until it's finished? We are dealing with Claris support. Or shall we abort the deployment and reschedule it to some other day? So I should never have asked the client. I should already abort it at that moment, because I was not sure how long it will take FileMaker or Cloud support to resolve the issue. So the fact that I let the client decide was a mistake. And the fact that we didn't give up early enough in the process was a mistake. So my takeaways from this is right now for this client, and it's not going to take long because we are actually switching the client to third-party hosting from FileMaker Cloud. So, but we decided that no new deployments will be made in different time than just Friday night, where we have enough time over the weekend to deal with any issues which can arise. The other thing is one strict rule. When we have a condition that we decide is a condition for abortion, we should never do otherwise. If the condition is met, abortion is mandatory. And client never has enough technical knowledge to make this decision whether it's safe or not safe to continue with the deployment. So we no longer ask clients to make this decision. We do the decision for the client and just tell them, okay, it didn't go well, we have to abort and reschedule because it's safer for them. And it's always good to have a backup plan that does not rely on the same third-party provider, even if it's Claris. So for instance, be able to deploy the database on our own server, temporarily, whatever, to make sure that the client can work even in worse conditions, but can continue working. It's getting worse. So having a good backup strategy is very important for business critical solutions. You agree? Yes. So how about solutions which are not business critical? What kind of backup strategy do you have for them? We have one solution that we use only once a year at the moment. In the past, we used it more often, but now we use it only once a year. It's an application that we use for preparing electronic books for one of our clients. It's not a big deal if it doesn't work for even a few days. So we had a backup strategy for this, and the backup strategy was just the same one we use for other FileMaker servers. We had automated daily backups, we had progressive backups, but because the solution took 60 gigabytes on a hard drive, we only kept 2 weekly backups, if I recall correctly, because there was not enough space for more. One day, I think it was in January, actually beginning of February, I got a notification that there is a problem on the FileMaker server. And the problem was that the database got corrupt. And do you know what happens when a database gets corrupt and closes on the FileMaker server? The next first progressive backup is not containing this database anymore, because the database closes and progressive backups only contain open databases. So the database was corrupt, and it actually got corrupt before FileMaker noticed it. So when I checked the weekly backups, they were also corrupt. And the reason was the hard drive in that computer, because it was an older computer and we only used it once a year, so we didn't need anything like more powerful. So this hard drive was dying. But the problem was that we typically use this database in fall, in like September, October. This happened in the beginning of February. Because of the backup settings, I had only backups of the corrupt database and nothing else. So this is what was there. And I said 50 gigabytes. This is just the database without external containers. There's another 50 gigabytes in external containers, by the way. So the mistake was Uh, I thought that it's non-critical system. It doesn't deserve so much thinking about the backup strategy. It does, because even if it's not business critical, if you lose data, it's going to cause a lot of extra effort at least to do something about it. And in this case, I was lucky that the core database, Claris, could actually retrieve about half of the data from it. So I used the data recovery service, again, first time in my life, and got half of the data back, and the other half we had to recreate. And the important mistake about the backup strategy was the backup retention time. So if you set up backups to take place every week and you keep 2 backups, how old is the oldest backup for you? You know, so if you use the solution at least only once a year, you need a backup that stays there for a year or more. So it's not necessary to keep more backups, but it is necessary to keep them longer. So the takeaways are: one backup strategy doesn't fit every FileMaker server or solution. You have to think about how often it is used, and how often it can happen that something happens, and how long you need to take the oldest backup. Of course, you have to think about how old should be the newest backup. For instance, something goes wrong and you want to go back, but you also need to think about how long to keep the oldest one. And if you use it irregularly, it's better to irregularly back it up. So now our new strategy for this solution is that in the fall, when we start working on a new book, before we work on it, we create a new backup manually. And after we are finished with that book, we also save a fresh backup manually. And we store it on a separate network drive where we can keep it for years. And it's getting worse. So again, this is our internal information system we use in 24U, I think, for 20 years now. We run our core business on it. All invoicing, orders, customers, everything is there. So what a stress when you get into it in the morning and you figure out there are no companies. So this happened. Luckily, we had sufficient backup, so I could quickly recover the data. But I also had to check what was happening. How come that the companies were deleted? Who did it? And the victim, the guilty was this script, because in one script we had a commit script step, which we expected to always succeed. But in another development, we created a new feature which was creating a company as part of API integration. And because it was server-side company creation, there was another commit which bypassed the validations. So it created a company with invalid data. And another script which was modifying that company record failed to commit the record because it failed the validation. So because of that, we then had a go-to layout in a script which is supposed to correctly delete some temporary data in different table. But because the commit failed, go-to layout failed as well. And we ended up running the delete all records in a wrong table. So the other thing which is very often failing in such situation is go to the next record. So the other thing that happened is we had a script that runs in a loop on the server, and it goes through companies and updates some data about them every night. And this script ended up running in endless loop because there was a go to next record which kept failing on that invalid record, so it never reached the last record. So what happened? What mistakes we made? One mistake was that there was a bug. We created a new script that created the invalid record in companies. But this small mistake revealed a bigger mistake, and that was we were simply relying on commit to be always successful. And actually, we discovered that we had about 120 places in the solution where we relied on commit to always succeed. So it's not completely fixed everywhere now, but we now discovered that this is a very strange and dangerous mistake to make. So the takeaways is it's better to be paranoid, and especially with the commit records, expect it to always that it and can always fail, and make sure you count with it and you provide some way how to deal with it. And if you use some dangerous script steps such as deleting all records, always make double sure that you are in the right context. So for us, these were the fixes. So in the looping script, we had an exit loop even if the go to record script step fails. It's also good to have exit loop on the server. Exit loop if even for the regular end of the loop, because if the go to next record reaches the last record, it generates an error message or warning message in the event log, and you don't want to have the event log spammed by these messages. So it's always good to also exit the loop if you are on the last record manually. And for us, this was the fix for the record deletion. And I really suggest, if you delete all records, always check whether you are deleting the records in the right table. It's a little bit paranoid. Okay, HOnza?
If I may bite you a bit, what if someone renames?
In this case, it doesn't happen because we have a very strict rule that we don't rename tables. But it's a good point, and checking the right context and making the check survive a long time can be a little bit more difficult. You have to have very good naming conventions or some ways how to say this is the right context, even if you rename tables. But in our case, once we create a table, we never rename it, and we have also strict naming conventions specifically for table occurrences, which we used in server-side scripts and things like that. So I have one fresh mistake that I made a few, I think 2 weeks ago. As you may know, Claris recently added persistent cache feature to the FileMaker server. It's a feature that's, according to Claris, is supposed to increase the stability or reliability of your server. So it sounds like something good to turn on. But recently I was updating our server to the latest version of FileMaker server. So I tried to turn this feature on, and what happened was that almost immediately the database engine, after restarting, because enabling the persistent cache requires you to restart the FileMaker server. So after I restarted it, it immediately crashed. And the problem with crashing the database engine, by the way, is that if you don't have the database engine running, you cannot use admin console or the admin API to change the settings. So I could not revert that change to make the server running again. Luckily, I knew a little bit from the ETS. Unfortunately, I couldn't find it in the top known issues. That's, by the way, one of the reasons why, if you were here yesterday, why I was asking about this page. But I heard that from the ETS that there is actually a known issue that when you set turn % cache on and you have the cache size set to more than 4096 bytes, then it can cause this issue. And we actually did have the cache set to more than that. Historically, we didn't have a reason for that anymore, but you know, people are lazy. I'm guilty for that as well. So because it worked fine, I never tried to review the cache settings because we had enough memory in the server. Because of knowing that this is related, I figured out that I can go to the XML file dbs_config, and I could change that setting manually in the file, and then I could start the FileMaker server and with the persistent cache disabled. But because I knew that this actually showed me, well, it's time to review the cache settings. So I also found a way how to nicely monitor. If you know the statistics log, the stats log, you can see the unsaved cache and cache hit percentage in the log. And there is a very old white paper written by Wim de Kort, which is still valid, advising how to deal with these values from the stats to find out what is the best cache size for you. So simply, if most of the time the cache hit is 100%, it means that the cache is large enough. So I started reducing the cache size and monitoring. With the previous command, I was monitoring the stats with highlighting those values of the cache hit and unsaved cache percentage, and started making the cache smaller and smaller to reduce it as much as I can. I figured out that after I reduced it to less than, I believe, 4 megabytes, there was a time at night around 9:30 when for about 2 minutes the cache hit was dropping down to like 50%. That was during a nightly backup schedule or something. But if it's only happening for 2 minutes every day, it's not a reason to increase the cache. It's still valid to be there. So the only reason to increase the cache size is when the cache hit is smaller than 100% for a long time during the day, or most of the time. So my mistake, number one was the cache size too big. The other one was I wasn't prepared for a quick rollback. I changed the configuration, and because the server engine crashed, I couldn't revert that change. If I had a fresh backup of the FileMaker folder, including the config, I could at least roll the config back from Time Machine or the backup, whatever it was. But I had to do it by manually modifying the file. And my takeaways from this are it's good to review the server configuration on a regular basis, because if you have a reason to make some config settings today, you may no longer have that reason next year, for instance, or with the next version of FileMaker. So it's good to review the config as part of the regular maintenance. Important takeaway is when the database engine is not running, you cannot make changes to the configuration, neither through admin console nor through the command line tool. And a good thing is because it's plain XML, the config can be manually modified. Just you have to be careful not to break the structure of the file. And it's always good to be ready to roll back, of course. Now, my appeal to Claris is, please let us know what are the top known issues. If there is a known issue that something crashes FileMaker and you're working on it, now from Claris, David is here, so so please pass it on. It's good to know about it before we run into issues. So that was our mistakes. I hope that some of them are for you still unexperienced, and so you can actually benefit from me sharing them. And let me share a little bit of joy from our recent successes as well. So how many of you know Xcode? No one? So this is our tool that we created, which is an online web-based tool for building iOS applications from FileMaker solutions. It's basically an automation around the FileMaker app SDK provided by Claris. So it's not like live code or something else. It's really what the result is really an app running the FileMaker engine, but it's a standalone app that you can install on iOS or iPadOS. And it's as simple as dragging a few things to the FileMaker, to the website, clicking a button, and you get the app built. Now, earlier this year, I think it was this year or maybe last year, I did a series of 5 live streams with Richard Carlton, where I went through the whole process of building an app, preparing it for the App Store, submitting it to the App Store, and getting it published on the App Store. I even created an app during those 5 live streams, and on the 4th day, it got published by Apple. So if you have an app that you might need to distribute through the App Store, which can be done either publicly or privately. So if it's a custom app for one customer or few customers, it still has to go through the App Store, but it will be hidden there, and you can only allow a single customer to download it. But this series is recorded, available on our website, and it's almost like step-by-step guide how to get it done. And the number of apps that are actually built with Xcode and published on the App Store is growing. And these are just icons of the apps which are available publicly on the App Store today. But there are also apps which are not public and are also built with Xcode. And one thing that we added just recently, earlier this year, is that you can also add plugins easily to those apps. And the latest one we added is even not ours. It's the MBS plugin from Christian. So if you use MBS plugin and you want to use it on iOS, which cannot be done in FileMaker Go, you actually have to use the SDK to build the app. You can use Xcode to easily build the app, and you can easily add MBS plugin just by clicking a checkbox there. So this is where you can learn about the tool, and you can try it on your own. The only thing you will always need is an App Store developer account, but if you go through that series of the live streams recorded, you get the advice how to deal with this and how to get everything ready. The other great success for us is a customer that we met for the first time during the pandemic on one of the Claris Partners meetings online. We started working for them by helping them with performance optimization for their solution. They are actually a leader of digital transformation in Lithuania. They have over 100 customers using their solution there, including government organizations, and they focus on procurement management. So for anyone having to deal with public tenders, can use their solution to help with managing the procurement process. But after we did the optimization, we started working together more closely and also doing some integrations for them. And because they focus on developing the core functionality of the system, it was great for them to get us as an external source to build extra features like integrating their system with external systems. And examples include Active Directory, where many of those big organizations already have Active Directory in place with thousands of users in there, and the whole organization structure managed in Active Directory. So instead of redoing that in the procurement management system, they now can just download the organization structure from Active Directory and apply it automatically. The same Microsoft Azure, which now has been renamed to Entra ID. It's the same but cloud-based. We also integrated Microsoft Exchange over there, Lithuanian and EU electronic invoices, which is the future of invoicing in Europe. I think there is already a plan that I don't know in how many years it will be mandatory across EU to have all invoicing done electronically. Mm-hmm. I'm not sure that, about details. It's our team work on it. I just know that this is what this is about in like general. And it also included preparing Docker templates so that they can easily deploy updates to their solution and updates to FileMaker server to all their customers. Because right now, with the old system where they are managing the FileMaker servers manually, updating a single installation is at least 1 hour at most the whole day for a single customer. With 100 customers, you can do the math. With Docker, doing this update is probably 5 minutes, not more. So that's also very interesting. But the most interesting integration that we did, at least from my point of view, is an app or service called Doc Generator. And it's basically a replacement for the 360works Scribe plugin, which they use to modify Excel and Word documents, generate PDFs from them, and generate e-documents for the procurement workflows. And the problem they had with the plugin, which is Java-based, was it was getting slow, it was getting unstable, and I'm not sure if it already is available for Linux, but it was not. So we actually rewrite the features that they used using open source Python libraries and made it scalable. So now they can spin up multiple instances of Doc Generator if they need more load, or they can use a single instance of Doc Generator by multiple FileMaker servers or multiple solution installations. And because it doesn't depend on Java, there's one less dependency that could impose risk of instability. And right now, it can generate PDFs from Word and Excel documents. It can even merge PDF documents and add custom text to it, like watermarks or additional data. It can modify and read Word documents, modify and read Excel documents, even XML structures, and which is important, zip multiple documents into a single file archive, which is the format used as an e-document. So e-document typically is a set of files zipped as a single folder, and just the file extension is changed from .zip to something else. So this is what we created, and we are ready if someone is interested to offer it to other customers as well. And as a summary, it's based on Python. It's using LibreOffice for the Microsoft Word and Excel document modifications. And because it's based on Python, it runs on macOS, Windows, and Linux. And it can be even deployed as a Docker image, as a Docker container. The next one is a customer we have in Moldova. It's a private diagnostic clinic there, and this clinic turned to us a few years ago because they had been using system, the management system for the whole clinic made by ACFA, and ACFA probably 10 years ago, if I recall correctly, got a huge contract from I think Ministry of Defense or Army or whatever. So it was kind of military order, military contract that was much more lucrative than keeping this management system going. So they discontinued it. They announced that they will stop supporting it. And so this clinic was looking for a replacement, and we had the opportunity to offer a completely new system built from scratch using FileMaker, which now they run on Macs. So they even made it inside the clinic more modern looking. You know that Macs are very appealing to customers by their design. So we built all this in FileMaker within about 2.5 years. And we also, as part of this system, integrated it with their medical devices, such as MRI, ultrasound, different devices which use in the medical world known DICOM protocol to communicate. The DICOM protocol has a lot of features, but the only one which is actually being used very much everywhere is letting those machines, those medical devices, know info about the patient that's coming for the examination, what's the patient's name, birth date, and what the examination is scheduled. So they just load the data. In the past, they had to type the data manually on each machine, and that was taking between 5 and 10 minutes for each examination. So now they can just press a button in FileMaker and load those data into the medical devices and have them ready for the examination. So the next one is a customer in the US, which we actually got into contact with through the Moyer Group, where they are taking care of their FileMaker solutions. And they turned to us for hardware integration because they were looking for a way how to optimize the process of shipping out packages. Before, they had to prepare the package, put it on the scale, and then they had to walk around it and take a few pictures of it and put it in the database before they could ship it out. And this whole process took, if I recall correctly, about 10 minutes. And so they were looking for a way how to simplify it, how to just have a single button in their iPad interface and take a picture of that package from different angles at the same second, and also collect the weight of the package in the database. So we had some challenges which we had to deal with. For instance, the time it takes to capture the photo, making sure that the photos are taken at the same time. The customer originally thought that the bottleneck of this solution would be how long transferring the photo from the camera to the solution. It ended up not being so big deal, but the bigger deal is that the camera takes about 2 seconds to take a single picture. So what we ended up doing is that we simply, when it's being active, we take the pictures on a regular basis and have them ready for downloading every 2 seconds or something like that. We also had an issue with brightness settings because we used the open source library. The whole solution actually runs on Raspberry Pi with an HTTP interface that the Moyer group could easily trigger using insert from URL script step in the FileMaker. And the thing we dealt with, there was a library which we updated to a newer version, and without any documentation, they changed one parameter, how they actually set the brightness and contrast values. So after this update, which was not supposed to break anything, we also had to figure out that there was this change and update the way how we set the contrast. Another very nice solution. This was made for a customer from Sweden, who is a company that creates tobacco products, and they mixed their products from different ingredients, I think up to 25, and they have recipes for all their products stored in FileMaker database, but they have been doing it all manually, and they were looking for a way how to automate it. So we created a solution based on Raspberry Pi that actually controls up to 25 pumps, and together with a digital scale, it actually takes the recipe from FileMaker, mixes all the ingredients, and it's all running automatically. Now there are some things that initially an experienced developer may not think about. So we thought like we are dealing with liquids, so there needs to be some kind of emergency stop for the case it's leaking or whatever. So as a part of the solution, we also included a big red button, which works the way that actually if you don't press it, it's connected, and if you press it, it interrupts the connection between two wires. So if you also cut the wire, whatever, it works just like pressing the button, and it stops it immediately. And the other thing that we had to deal with was accuracy. So with liquids, if the pump runs too fast, you not always can stop it fast enough to prevent additional liquid to go to the finished product. So we also had to control the speed of the pump, and when we are getting close to the target weight, we just slow down and up to down to individual drops, dropping down from the pump. And another thing that let us improve it a little bit more and make it more user-friendly for the customer was obviously if you have a Raspberry Pi interface that you have to control from FileMaker, you have to know how to connect to it. So you need to know the IP address. So the way we done it is simply if you connect the monitor to the Raspberry Pi, after it starts up, the thing that appears there is the IP address. So it's a very simple change, but to simplify the setup for the customer, it made a huge change. The other thing here is we also integrate different kinds of like barcode scanners, RFID readers, and so on. So last year, I first created an application called Inventory Race, where I was comparing different ways how to count items, in this case in a box. And so I compared 4 different methods. One was counting them manually, just looking at them and marking the items in the database with a finger. The other one was using the iPhone camera to scan barcodes. And the other one was using a laser barcode scanner from Zebra. And the other one was using RFID. And these were the results. So two important takeaways. One is it still makes sense to use barcode scanners because it's still faster and more reliable than the camera on the phone, especially if you have like poor light conditions. Also, aiming at the barcode is much easier with the laser beam than with the camera. But if you want to achieve a huge time savings, and you can, and in most cases you can, even if you don't know, you can use RFID, it's worth considering because in that box, just figuring out what's inside took 2 seconds instead of 1 minute just by using RFID. So, and within the last 10 or 15 years, the RFID technology became so much cheaper that it's now affordable by small businesses as well. So you can start with just less than 1,000 euros for hardware to use RFID. And if you want to see the video of the different ways how to count the items in the box, this is the link where you can look at it. So I'll let you take a picture. And these are the products that we have to deal with RFID and barcodes. So GoNectar is a plugin for iOS apps to integrate FileMaker with different hardware devices. It currently supports a wide set of devices, including mobile printers, barcode scanners, RFID scanners, and Trexie is if you want to go farther, if you want to completely automate processes with RFID, deploy stationary RFID readers around doors, for instance. So this is a solution which we can provide. It's complete, including our advice on choosing the right hardware, setting it up, and getting it ready. Just one thing to be aware of, completely setting up RFID system is at least going to take a few months. So it's not something that you can decide today and have working tomorrow. And that's it for today. So do you have any questions?